www.radioteenspuebla.com.
Teens Puebla, transmitiendo para tus sentidos.
1, 2, 3.
Hola, ¿qué tal amigos de Radio Teens? Yo soy Esmeralda Ramírez y estamos aquí en la cobertura de Star Wars organizado por Disney. Y bueno, pues no se olviden de seguirnos en todas nuestras redes sociales y vamos a ver lo que pasa.
Or to see how it crosses all generations. And there's very few things out there right now in the world that do that and that speak to a message that's positive and that give kids today kind of a roadmap to kind of find their place in the world and try and follow the light side. So I think it's more important today than it ever has been.
The movies were always very optimistic. They came out in a time post-Watergate, post-Vietnam War, when usually you had an anti-hero who was embittered, coming back from the war, the factories closed. I think George chose to put it in a galaxy far, far away because that's as close as you can come to me. And I thought it was interesting the first day I met Ryan, we came to visit and get to know one another, and I confessed to him, I'm terrified. You know, I like little films. I did Brigsby Bear this year. We drive around in suburbia in cars. You know, Star Wars is almost too high profile for comfort. So I was surprised when I confessed how terrified I was. He said, I am too. And I thought, wow, he didn't have to admit that. Well, I bonded with him at that very moment. Because if I really intellectually imagined how big it really was, I would just be crippled with fear. So I had to pretend it was a small art house film that the critics would embrace, but the audiences would reject in mass numbers. That's what I pretended. It's fun to pretend.
Layers, I think, for me coming into it as kind of, you know, as the new kid, there was first kind of the shock and awe of we're doing Star Wars with a capital SW, kind of the big picture of it. But then once we actually started working, I didn't find that it took a lot of effort to fool ourselves into thinking we were making a smaller movie. It felt very intimate, and I think that's a testament to just the group of people that we had working on it, to you guys, to the whole cast. It just, everyone kind of was, our eyes were on the right target, I think, of just making an interesting movie. And when you put your eyes on that target, everything around you kind of shrinks down, and you're just trying to tell a story. And that's what it felt like, I think.
Right, you're just so focused on what you're doing in the moment, you can't think about facing all you guys a year and a half later. Now's when I should be really scared.
I'm terrified.
Of yourself in The Last Jedi that you didn't knew before in The Force Awakens?
I did feel personal pressure actually going into The Last Jedi because The Force Awakens had just come out like a month before. And so I was sort of dealing with, firstly, I'd never been in a film before, so a film I was in came out, and then it's a Star Wars film that had come out. And then, you know, people are like, hey. I'm like, hey, what did I do? And they're like, oh no, you're in that film. I'm like, oh yeah. And it's like, it's a lot to take in. And because I knew what people had responded to in The Force Awakens, in particular my relationship with John, Rey and Finn on their adventure, I think that was my nerves, because I thought, oh, if this is the way people are responding, I don't know what I did the first time round that's made people respond like this, and people are so kind, but I don't really understand it, so I don't know how to do that thing again. And if I'm not with John at the beginning, I don't know how to do that, because he was like my support network the first time round, him and Harrison, but John in particular. So I felt nervous because I thought, oh, is this going to do for people what the first one did? Will people respond as strongly to this story as they did with that? And then obviously we were able to have some rehearsal, and we sat down and we talked through a lot of stuff. And then you realise, yes, it's a challenge, and different things happen in the galaxy, and that's what's exciting, and that's how people grow. And so those nerves went away, but I did feel that very much, and I cannot remember the second part of your question. I'm so sorry. No, I don't feel the personal pressure, because I'm not Ray, like, she's way better than I am. I'm just really lucky to play her. I don't have the fate of the galaxy resting on my shoulders. I am just in a film that makes people happy. Yeah, and I think I don't feel that pressure so much. I think it's really lovely. And because it really was a surprise how people responded, I'm still blown away by how kind people are. And especially when parents are like, I took my daughter and I could get her the costume and she's so happy, and like little boys want to run like Ray, and like that's incredible. There's nothing, it's overwhelming, but there's nothing scary about that. It's just kids being kids. It's just, it's wonderful. It's really wonderful.
What do you think Luke can learn about us after maybe the earthquake we have and the union we show? Maybe is there anything that Luke can learn about Mexican people?
Well, of course. I mean, the idea of doing the right thing for the greater good rather than for self-aggrandizement. You know, that there's safety in numbers, and that you help the people that are less fortunate than you. Those are all tenets of the film. And by the way, when I was a kid, my father was in the Navy, so we lived in San Diego, and I went to Tijuana several times, and that's where I got my first Cantinflas marionette, so I'm a big fan of his. But listen, how can you live in Los Angeles and not love the Latin culture? We're a minority. And when you think about where I lived in California, San Diego, Los Angeles, San Jose, San Francisco, are you picking up a trend here? So, you know, it's great. It feels, I mean, the people are so warm here, they make you feel like part of the family.
I don't want you to tell us, but if you could choose as a fan, what would you choose? Skywalker or Kenobi?
Well, I'm sitting right here. What's she gonna say? Listen, just in general about your question about Star Wars fans, what is amazing to me is the passion they have and how they've incorporated the mythology into their own lives. And you hear these personal stories of getting through, terrible times in their own lives. You know, it helped when my sister was in the hospital, or I met my husband online, and we had by the sequel we had a young child and named it Leia, or whatever. It's astonishing. It never gets old, and I'm just sometimes moved by the fact that they have taken us to heart, and I don't encounter it on a day-to-day basis. It's usually when I come to fan events and so forth, and people tearfully recount how important these films are to them. Because, at the end of the day, they're 2.5 hours of escapism. But as I've learned over the years, it means so much more than I could have ever imagined. And the idea that I was a small part of something that made so many people so happy, it's just the greatest gift I could have ever been given. Now, back to the Skywalker Kenobi question.
The thing is, anything I say is going to be, more weighted now. What I think is really amazing, because I didn't understand exactly the impact of Star Wars. I didn't fully, like when Force Awakens came out and everyone's like, oh my god, who's your parents? I was like, oh. Like, I was genuinely surprised that was the main question. Because for me, like, getting into something, eyes wide shut sort of thing, what I found so amazing in The Force Awakens is Rey meets Finn, and they've never met before. He's a defected stormtrooper, she's a scavenger, and then we're like brother and sister, and it's an amazing connection. And in that moment, like, Rey finds a piece of family. And before that, she's met BB-8 and she finds a piece of family, and then she meets Han Solo, she finds a piece of family. When she's finally with the Resistance, it's like, this is sort of where I belong, and then off she has to go on another adventure. But essentially, Rey is seeking belonging. And so obviously a lot of Star Wars is looking back and wondering where she came from. But I think the wonderful thing, especially about this film, is it's all about progress and the relationships people are making now. And obviously things are influenced by what you had before. But I just think it's beautiful, the relationships that are formed with people that aren't even necessarily, that wouldn't be classed as family, but family is who you choose, I think. You can choose to love people and bring them into your home and make a life with a group of people that have no blood relation to you. So whatever I say now is going to be taken. So in this film, Ray turns up and essentially has a quest from someone else for Luke. It's not really about her. She just has to do this thing that she's sort of been asked to do. But because of the space that Ray and Luke have on the island, she's able to ask questions and seek guidance from Luke. And in that moment, again, Ray finds a relationship of sorts, regardless of whatever that is. It's a relationship of sorts, and I think that's what's so wonderful is the people Ray meets. It's like she's so open, like she's been alone for so long, but she's so open to like finding connections with people, and she's not met a Kenobi, so Skywalker.
Hey kid, maybe you're solo. That's my Harrison Ford. I have to announce my impressions for people that don't.
You make a direct political analogy, it can immediately be diffused by recognizing the elements of it, disagreeing with them, and saying, blah, you're coming from here or there. I think the power of Star Wars is it's much deeper than that, and it's about the things underneath all that really matter. And that ultimately inform the stuff that's happening in our day-to-day lives. That's why it's so applicable to it. So, and I think that's the case with the original films, and I hope that's the case with what we're doing now.
Ok, tenemos tiempo para una pregunta más.
Hola amigos de Radio Teens, estamos aquí en la alfombra negra de Star Wars, donde vinieron muchísimas personas de la película, las cuales pues aquí hubo muchísima gente.
Knowing a lot of stuff about Star Wars and not being able to tell everyone, because you must be like so excited, like getting home, like, oh, I'm gonna tell everyone, but you can't.
Does anyone know nearby?
No, even my wife doesn't know. Oh, yeah. Even my kids, I don't trust them because I don't tell anybody. So they must be like really tense. Like, ah, come on, Daddy, tell us. They keep guessing what's happening, but one of the beautiful things about the movies is very unexpected. Even if you think you know, you don't really know.
Así como que le haces algo. Pero a ver, enséñanos tu lightsaber.
to share anything.
Well, what's very exciting is the film really is very close to coming out, and I think everybody loves to not know. Like it's exciting for people not to know. And I'm going to leave you to the pictures. Troll your fans on Twitter. Why are you doing that?
Well, I don't really consider it trolling. I like making jokes and teasing them and having fun. And they tease me and troll me right back, as they should.
¿Me puedes decir algo así, un pequeño secretito de la película? ¿Por qué no?
Walker.
Esperanzadora.
Challenging.
Retadora. Do you realize you're confusing us?
To us, it's innocent incest.
Unusual to be thrown in with a group of people you really love, like a cast and a crew that are all really striving to make a good thing. And
you guys watch it, I can't wait to see this. May the force be with you guys.
www.radiotinspuebla.com
Puebla, transmitiendo para tus sentidos.